Today, we are going to make some grass. No, I'm not in Colorado, so it's not going to be that kind of grass. It's our techniques that are so simple and sensible, your mothers have practically built themselves.
Folks, it's Mad Dog Merv, and I'm at one of the schools here in Salt Lake City. But what I'd like you to notice is behind me there is there's a hedge, and it's what's behind that hedge, or what used to be behind that hedge, that will be the subject of what we are going to be talking about today. So let's do some investigating and find out what this mystery is. Today we are in the Poplar Grove, part of Salt Lake City. It's a west side neighborhood, not far from Glendale, the Glendale neighborhood. It's on about 1200 West and just south of Indiana Avenue, so about the 9th South area of Salt Lake. This paved path used to be actually a rail line, and we're going to look at that. We're going to look at the school that's here now. We're going to look at the school that used to be here. So let's take a look and see what we got here. So looking west from that last vantage point, you can see on the far left the parking lot for the school, the Parkview School that is currently here. And you can see the entryway right by this stop sign of the what's called the 9-line trail, which just goes right on past there. And we're going to look at that in depth just a little bit more here, because it's a very important part of this area and the school that used to be here. So here you go. Here's the path. And it wasn't too many years ago that this was actually a live rail line. This is the old San Pedro, LA, and Salt Lake rail line that was started in 1901. It was around 20 years or so before the UP kind of took over. And off and on it was active up through the 2000s. So kind of a neat little piece of railroad history there. So here, marked in green on this old 1911 Sanborn fire insurance map, is the line, that railroad line. And you can see direction north is up there. But there's a very interesting building that is right here in this picture. And, well, if you go back to one of the very first installments I did of Echoes from the Chalkboard, you'll find a school called Uinta. And it was in the Poplar Grove area, and here it is. Uinta School. It was built in 1894, so before the railroad was right by there, but 1894, and was active till, as I recall, 1907 as a school. And then it became a parochial building. It was used as a Sunday school for many, many years. When I say many, many years, well, let's take a look at some of the aerial photography. So here's 1937, and you can see the green is the rail line. You can see the Uinta School. Perfect outline of it there. I want you to notice these yellow areas, because we're going to talk about those coming up here in just a moment, and the role they play in what's going on with the modern school that is there. Man, kind of an interesting hodgepodge this one is. So here is a 1958 overhead, and that area, well, you can see where the areas were circled. You've got the baseball field, you've got some structure that's kind of torn down on the left, and some homes that are on the right that were circled in yellow. And that actually turned out to be a super fun site. Some kind of smelting that went on there back in the day. Very interesting. So here it is, a modern overhead look of the rail line, which is now the 9-line trail. The school that's currently there to the at the bottom, which is the new Parkview Elementary School. The area circled at the top is the site of that old Uinta school. Of course, now there's some homes there. It was torn down obviously in the 60s, and some homes were built. But kind of cool. So enough about the background of the area, on to the school. So Parkview Elementary School was built about where that baseball diamond was that you saw, and the address was 1250 West Meade Avenue. It was built in 1965 on 12 acres of that land, that big square that you saw in the previous picture. And it was about a 51,000 square foot building, so at the time it was very modern and fairly large for an elementary school of that particular time. Of course, it was built to fulfill the needs of the growing Poplar Grove area as well as the Glendale area. Here on the right side of the main entrance is the auditorium area. Now, I worked at this building for about 2 days back in the late 90s. I just was a substitute there for a couple of days. Kind of an interesting looking building, not very well lit. Just the architecture of the 60s wasn't my favorite, that's for sure. So in a Facebook group that I belong to called If You Grew Up in Glendale, You Will Remember, somebody posted this yearbook, this 1971-1972 yearbook from the Parkview School. I didn't think much of it at first, but then, oh yeah, yearbooks usually have pictures of the school. And seeing as how I only have those 2 pictures you saw earlier of Parkview, and it took me years to find those, I thought I better take a look and see what somebody has posted. And sure enough, at the top of this page is a picture of the school, very similar to the one that I have. But I thought, I'm going to see if any of these people, these principals, assistants, any of these people I've worked with before, because I had a very long career. And sure enough, on the right-hand side at the very bottom, there's Mr. Nolte, the custodian. Wow, the memories came flooding back. So Heinz Nolte was a gentleman who had served in the German Wehrmacht army in World War II. And after World War II, he had come over to the United States, kind of start life over, and he wound up working for the Salt Lake School District as a custodian. I don't know how many years he worked for the district, but he worked obviously till late into the 1970s when he retired. But after a couple of years, he got bored, needed a little money, I don't know, and he went back to work as a night custodian part-time at Nibley Park Elementary School. Well, I started working in 1979, and by 1980, Heinz came along as my night supervisor. Very, very interesting that I got to work with this wonderful gentleman. He used to tell me some great stories. One of which was that to clean his cafeteria after the kids got through eating, he would take a snow shovel and he would run it across the ground in the cafeteria to chip up all of the food that had got squished on the floor. And I can imagine he probably scraped up some wax as well. But anyway, what a wonderful guy. I worked with him for a couple of years at Nibley Park, and I just treasured my time with this fine gentleman. So the old 1965 building was torn down in 2001, and a beautiful new building was built. This is like a 75,000 square foot. It's big and it's sprawling and it's one level and it's beautiful. And this is the new Parkview that is on this site. And it's just a beautiful building. And it just so happens that a good friend of mine, one of the best employees that I had, one of the best subordinates I had, Miss Ellie, or Elia, as we know her, is the new head custodian this year. Brand new this year. What a great legacy she gets to be a part of. What a great neighborhood she gets to be a part of. And those kids and those folks that work there are very lucky because she's an amazing employee. Well, thanks for joining us, folks, and we'll see you again soon.